Okay guys, I think we're going to get started. Hello, good afternoon I guess. Quite a lot of you here, so I guess it's a fairly hot topic. I just want to get you all warmed up because, then I'll introduce the panellists. But you know, we are here, we want you guys to kind of ask some questions. You've got the advantage of having sort of 5.5 specialists here, I guess, so you know, it's your opportunity to ask some questions. So first a quick warm up just to show me you guys can actually use your hands. How many marketers have we got in the room? Can we all put hands? Good, okay. Out of those, how many of you guys are sort of consider yourself social media enthusiasts? I think is probably the best word I like to use. Have we got any analysts in the room? A few analysts, okay. And any shareholders of any companies in the room? One. Okay, I think I know which way this might go towards the end. Right, so my name's Joe Edwards. I'm Head of Strategy at Brand Engage. I'm also a tutor at the IDM, Institute of Direct and Digital Marketing. I'm just going to introduce you to our esteemed panellists. First off, we've got Will Francis. If you give us a little wave, Will, thank you very much. Will's the co-founder of a creative social technology agency called Harkable. He loves connecting people around technology, and something he's been doing since his days at MySpace, and he's continuing to do so with such clients as Nike, Spotify, The Mirror, Penguin and Warner Music. Jonathan Cook is head of new media at Valtech. He's currently helping global brands accelerate their shift from traditional media marketing towards digital media initiatives. Katy, Howell. Katy is CEO at social media consultancy Immediate Future. She helps brands like Sony, Hotpoint, the Post Office, Staples, BlackBerry, JD Williams adopt and integrate and deploy social media. Wayne St. Amand is Vice President of Global Marketing for Crimson Hexagon, which are a social media monitoring and analysis platform with unique technology invented by Harvard. And then finally we have Russell. Russell's a social media specialist at PCS, leading the development of real-time perception management for solution brands. So thanks for joining us, guys. I'm going to kick-start with a couple of questions, and then hopefully you guys will, that will jog some thoughts with you guys, and you can start putting your hands up, hopefully, because you all know how to use them now, and start asking some questions. So I'm going to kick-start things off with, why is ROI in social media so hard to prove? Anybody want to take that one?
I can jump on it. So we're at the children's table, just so you know, over here. So I think, you know, from my perspective, from the perspective of a social media analysis platform, one of the challenges of measuring ROI is that the systems, the wiring, if you will, that exist around the transactional aspects of online commerce aren't necessarily wired to the connections with consumers that you typically get out of social media analytics platforms. So in order to understand ROI, you need those things to be wired together. Otherwise, you've got one set of data in one spreadsheet on one side, one set of data on the other side, and you need human beings to correlate those things, to put them together. And I know as a marketer for 2 decades, I'm a word guy, not a numbers guy necessarily, and I think in general, marketers are more about the qualitative than the quantitative. So I think once the systems exist, to connect those things more easily, and they're more readily available, we will see kind of more connection between those things, and it'll be easier to get at.
Cool. Anyone else want to pick up on that comment?
Hi, I don't think ROI is hard to prove. I think you set out a plan of the direction you're going. You put specific targets you're trying to achieve, such as get your loyal customers to spend 30% more, and then work out the steps to get there. At the minute, I don't think what's making it difficult for people possibly is that we don't know how to do it efficiently, and I think that's the only thing we've got to learn, really.
Okay, anybody else?
Hi. In the long term, I definitely agree you can set a kind of a target for your ROI, and you can probably bring that back, but I think it comes down to short-term accomplishments. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, they're all kind of social channels. It's where people are talking and they're having conversations. How can you kind of put a price on how people emotionally respond to a tweet or a particular picture. You might make them laugh, you might make them smile, but how do you turn that into a quantitative kind of fact? You've made 20 people retweet your particular image, you've made them laugh, you've made them happy, but how does that make you any money? How can you guarantee that's going to come back and give you business?
Can I just add one more point?
Yeah, of course.
Which is that we've gotten used to measuring things in digital, but one of the things we do quite a lot of is measure last click. And in our experience, social media just doesn't fulfill the last click element very often. And so you see quite a lot of evidence that shows that the last click before sale is not social media, which makes you think it has no contribution to the final ROI. And so we need to look again at our systems and start looking at first, second and third click, where you can see the biggest contribution that social makes is in contributing to the sale rather than converting the sale. And then you can see its value within the ROI chain.
Then there's also the additional problem that anybody with clients will probably know that social media can get mistaken as a way to buy clicks. And, you know, if someone wants to generate clicks, I would say buy PPC. It's not a way to buy clicks or very directly up your revenue. It has lots of indirect goals around that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Social media is a channel for relationships. It's where you all talk to your own friends. I don't believe it's really a direct sales route. Everybody's got email accounts, everybody's got a telephone, but it's the way you communicate. You don't click on every spam message that you get, you don't look through them, you don't go and click through. It's not an effective sales route. It's a channel to build relationships. It's about understanding relationships. It's not about building sales, in my opinion.
Okay, so that kind of, I guess, leads me on to another question around ROI. What is the point of ROR? Sorry, talking about ROR. What's the point of ROR? Do you think that we're seeing kind of buy-in from boards and shareholders in the kind of return on relationship? This is where we're looking at, I guess, the longer-term goals of kind of social return on investment.
Again, I mean, anybody with clients will know that ultimately you have to report ROI. To convince someone that ROR even exists is very hard. So what you really have to do is just connect up your activity in social media to, for want of a better description, traditional marketing goals. And they're not always, like I say, they're not always obvious things like generating clicks or generating sales. You know, a Facebook page may be a way to reduce customer service response times, for instance. So there's lots of other quite traditional goals that you can reach, and that for me comes under ROI, definitely.
You had quite a nice example, as you will, didn't you?
Well, yeah, I was saying earlier, it was a bit like, if I ask you what the score is in Murray's tennis match and you telling me the speed of the fastest serve, it's not really what I want to know. What I ultimately need to know is the score in sets and games. And so creating other sort of score sheets that are ancillary and on the periphery of the sort of main game are very risky, because once you do that, you then have to sort of justify their very existence. And again, anybody with clients will know that that's quite difficult.
Jonathan, I thought you...
Yeah, I agree with Will. For me, ROR is an abstract term which confuses the issue. I think that politicians use abstract terms all the time, trying to lift children out of poverty, and it's not the children that are in poverty, it's their parents that are in poverty. So abstract terms, they stop you from thinking clearly about what you're trying to achieve. ROI gets to the heart of the point, and those sorts of examples are perfect. You need to know where you're going and what you're doing, and once you know the sorts of ROI measures you're trying to achieve, then it's easy to break down the problem and do that efficiently, and then do it well as well.
Anybody else want to add to that?
So this is clearly going to turn into a bit of a debate. I think that everything starts with the relationship. You can't, just as in any relationship, you can't jump to the final destination right away. You have to build a relationship. Building a relationship takes time, stages, nurturing, and you need to really understand your consumer very well before they'll transact with you. It's a multi-step process. The transaction is the end goal, and measuring your analytics and understanding your consumer all the way through that process is very important. But I think that ROI and ROR are sort of two stages in the same universe.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is as well that social media is a long-term play. Like I say, if you want clicks to your site this afternoon, go and buy PPC. There's just no other answer, really. But yeah, and that's another tricky thing for anybody with clients is the fact that you have to really convince them that it's going to take a matter of months, not minutes, to see results sometimes, and that can be really tricky. So I agree.
And might not want to really overlook social media as not just a tool to develop new business, but also to keep customers coming back. I spent 3 years at Morrison's before I went to university, and we had customers that would come in week after week and queue up at one checkout operator, because that's the person they like to talk to. That's the person they talk to week after week, and that's not a strategy by Morrison's. They just like that person. And when you leave now and you go onto any exhibition standing here, you'll automatically be greeted with a smile, a welcome, a nice handshake, because you're automatically building up a relationship with that person, and that's vital. And no one out there will give you a disgruntled look or won't really be interested, because the relationship is key. The relationship is what goes to that end sale, and the relationship is what people remember.
Cool. Okay, I'll throw a question out to the audience. Any questions for our panel? Okay, yeah, we've got one over there.
Hi, thanks for both sides of the argument. I'm a bit traditionally more in an ROI proponent, but if I wanted to demonstrate ROR in a dashboard or look at the long-term trends or present it to senior management, how would I put a dashboard together, or would I be looking at marketing reports, or how would I start to develop?
So what are the metrics?
Yeah, basically, I guess, yeah.
I'll start to answer that one. So I think relationships are based, whether they be online or in the physical realm, on thoughts and feelings, and understanding how people think and feel is critical in any relationship. So being able to measure quantitatively, again, these qualitative thoughts that are thoughts and feelings are incredibly important. And there are ways to measure online discussions related to you, your brand, your products, your competitors, that will, again, quantitatively deliver a sense of understanding of how that relationship is going. Is it going well? Is it improving? Is it declining? What have you. So you need to be able to break down the conversations into some measure that gives you a sense of thoughts and feelings on the way to a transaction.
You also need to think about some of the hard metrics, because ultimately numbers still matter. You can have lots of thoughts and feelings with 10 followers and fans, but it might not move the needle very far. So you still probably need to think about reach and engagement. So you need to look at those numbers too, to see what impact they have through your pipeline. Better still is also to start to segregate the numbers so that you can tie it back to your own CRM system. So we work with a e-commerce fashion brand who has its roots in data and mail order, and we were able to go through, for instance, their Facebook profiles, marry up those customers that are already their customers, look at the percentage of new customers, and begin to look at the separation, as you say, in terms of the different types of relationships that were being had, but also then allocate value to those relationships, because we could see which ones were spending money. So there's kind of two elements to it. So it's not just, it's no one thing in isolation. Relationships matter, but so too do some of the harder metrics.
And when working on a sort of project for a customer, I'll probably set maybe five ROI objectives, and then for each one I sort of break it down. So I absolutely agree with the nurturing side of things, but with an ROI objective, I'll start to measure, am I getting towards that ultimate ROI objective? So for instance, I might have a customer that's really loyal around makeup brands only, and I'll be wanting them to see if I can push them into buying other categories. So I'll be measuring the activity on the loyal channel and seeing what conversations I can get to spark with them on a category they're not investing in, for instance, or not buying at the moment. So, but I'll be measuring it per sort of ROI objective and in that flow of conversation.
Okay, so I guess that sort of talks about a dashboard. So moving on to that, what kind of tools should we be using? What kind of skill sets do we need to be measuring against ROI and ROR?
Well, for me, my starting point probably isn't tools and platforms. My starting point is this broad chain of strategy. I think about which people I'm trying to connect to who. So which people in my business, which people am I trying to connect to across the buying journey that the customer might be on. And platforms are absolutely the last thing I start thinking about. I then try and think about what is the most efficient way of achieving what I need to do. Can I extend the existing platforms that I've got rather than trying to re-platform? Can I, or if it's broken in any way, either the delivery platform or the measurement platform, do I need to go and add something else into that? And I try and just do the simplest thing possible. So platforms, metric tools, all those sorts of things, my last thing. Connecting people to content is the first thing for me.
With some of our brands, we deal with very high volumes, so in the millions of customer bases, and I would say an absolute essential is a monitoring tool, but a monitoring tool that you can fiddle with a bit so that you can make it say the things you want. Otherwise you can be deluged with so many multiple points of data you can't work out what the hell you're trying to find out in the first place. So it really helps to have a really substantial monitoring tool that allows you to bespoke it so that you can start to watch for patterns, because the other problem with all of this is that for many of us, our audiences are evolving with us. So what you might guess as being an ROR type target right at the beginning might not be when you have, when you started out with a couple of 100,000 fans. When you've got millions of fans, they'll behave in a completely different way. And you have to start measuring things that you maybe have not thought about previously because they weren't manifesting. So a good monitoring tool will look at the whole sweep of what's going on and look for not just the things you set out to do, but the things that are changing along the way.
Anybody else want to add to sort of the skill sets, maybe?
What they said? No, seriously.
Skill sets, analytics.
Good stuff there. I would agree that your analysis and your goals related to ROR and ROI have to be rooted in your business goals. I think as marketers, our gut sense is we want to jump to action, we want to jump to activity and start working on whatever it is that we're working on right away, because marketers typically are people of action. However, you need to know what your business goals are at a strategic level before you can jump to tactics. And basing your action on analysis and strategy so that you know from which place to start is extraordinarily important. So I guess the one bit of guidance is think before you act. It sounds very trite, but very few people do it. Very few people, most people jump to action before they analyze and understand the situation, the ecosystem that they're in, develop the metrics that are going to tell you if you're being successful along your journey, and then execute.
I've got a bit more on skill sets as well to add to that, which is, for me, cross-functional teams are absolutely important. So if you're a marketeer, from day one of your concept, get a usability guy, get a business analyst, and get an engineer, not a toy engineer, a proper engineer. You don't need to spend hours, you can just start the concept with them, and if you're working in a cross-functional team the whole way, you'll simplify all problems and remove blockers, and you'll get to be efficient and figure out what platforms, what metric platforms you need, and what sort of strategy you're trying to deliver is the quickest way of doing things.
Cool. Any more questions from the audience? Not one. We must have one question. Somebody burning on your lips must be one.
Are there any hardcore ROR advocates in the crowd?
Wow. So we're all ROI. See, I thought that was going to be completely the other way around.
Let's see a show of hands. ROR, raise your hand. All right, a few brave souls. And I assume everyone else is in the ROI category.
Wow.
How about a blend of the two? Does that make logical sense? I think that's really the answer.
Would anybody agree that putting ROR versus ROI is slightly misleading, because essentially ROR is part of ROI, right? Yeah, thanks. I'm glad someone put their hand up. That would have looked really stupid if you hadn't. Thank you.
Okay, another question then, because there's a lot of quiet. Do significant investments mean equal significant relationships?
No,
Okay,
definitely
brilliant.
not.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, again, kind of on what we just discussed, that the strategy of social media is absolutely vital. How many hashtags turn into bash tags is quite concerning. So it's really key that the social strategy is perfect, and you're not going to do your brand more damage with more investment.
I've seen lots of brands try and build Facebook commerce stores, that sort of thing, which takes a fair bit of investment. But what people have been doing a lot in those circumstances is just replicating traditional website e-commerce store and trying to whack it into Facebook. So for me, that's a waste of money, and it can be very expensive. What you need to be doing is partly saying what you're doing is nurturing that relationship, but in a direction, knowing where you're trying to get to, and build something which is useful for people in that context, and put content which is useful to them in that context. So it's very easy to spend a lot of money in a really wasteful way if you don't know what you're doing.
Can I just add, there's actually there's a better way to add to that, which is that it's almost an incremental increase in your budget that you might need to consider. So we do a lot of work with B2B social media as well, but with very specific outcomes, lead generation being one of the biggest ones. Quite hardcore in its kind of ROI end goal. We're doing some work, for instance, with an IBM company, and that it is the analysis of the detail. We do analytics on a daily basis to look at the performance of conversations, links, conversations we start, conversations we contribute to, using LinkedIn platform predominantly, and then following those through. And every single link is trackable, everything is managed. Why do we do that? Because we can then work out which topics are capturing people's attention, which content works, and then either reallocate or add investment to those particular content areas. And it feels like a really hard piece of work, but actually you get into a bit of a rhythm with it. You get to love spreadsheets because they become your friend, and you watch the numbers all the time, and it has real advantages. Now we've honed out topics that we know no one will ever discuss and nobody will ever click on, but we're beginning to work the bits that are building us the most number of leads.
Definitely just on that. Engagement, I think, is definitely key. You see a few too many brands, they tend to look at Twitter and Facebook as just another kind of email channel. They just send out what the latest blog post is, or keep promoting positive news about their own brand. It's about talking. People that are on social media who have grown up with it, they've grown up engaging one-on-one with people, and that's really the cornerstone of the solution that we're building, to keep talking to people, to keep engagement going. Two-way communication leads to brand loyalty, which will inevitably lead to increased sales or protecting your sales.
And one other factor in this, as you're thinking about measurement, is that discussion online, between consumers and prospects, is not just a reflection of social media campaigns. It's a reflection of people's reaction to all that you're doing in marketing. So if you're doing radio campaigns or television campaigns, those things impact how people are reacting to your brand online in social media. So make sure that there's a way to factor the contribution of a traditional media spend into and as part of your social media oriented channels and the spend there. And also when conducting an analysis, or rather prior to producing a campaign, absolutely make sure that you create a baseline analysis so you know exactly where you are before you start. That way you can prove definitively that you've moved the needle, that you've had an impact, and measure yourself in the same way before, during, and after your campaign, so that you're comparing apples to apples.
I think we've got a question at the front.
I just wondered your reaction on the changes to the Data Privacy Act that are currently being debated in Europe and due to come in 2015. How are they going to impact us on us actually building those relationships in the first place?
That's actually a great question, because we work with an engineering company who is based in Germany, who are probably the most concerned about the requirement to anonymise data. And the impact is probably largest with those companies that want to start moving their customer base through the funnels of social media, which are their non-owned estates effectively, through to email or some form of acquisition. In general terms, just having relationships, even if they are anonymous, in the main you will pretty much know that people engaging with you are interested in your subject area. It's probably not changing nurturing hugely, but it is changing this acquisition, which has possible impact on how much you might invest in it if your board is hardcore ROI, because it will become increasingly difficult to do so. So you need to switch metric to probably something more along the lines of correlation graphing, where you're looking for upticks in community engagement, so your customer base, assuming it's anonymous, and then upticks in your sales profile, so that you can see the two running together and start to make correlations. But with that data anonymised in the way it will be, it's going to become really complex to attribute single sales, single person.
So just to provide an alternate perspective, so what happens, what becomes most important when privacy laws become enacted and people say, don't talk to me? What's the way to overcome that? Relationship. When you have a relationship with somebody, you're open to that communication. So I would argue that building a strong relationship is what will allow you to overcome some of those privacy concerns. There's no question that we're living in a world with social media where so much of what we do happens in public, and the social media platforms are actually making it, I think, more and more difficult for you to take command and control of your own data and market private. I can tell you that with our social media analysis platform, we only look at data that's marked public, so we're not looking at any sensitive data or any private data. But ultimately, I think the world will start to lock down, users will start to lock down the information that they consider their own. So the only way to overcome that is to establish a relationship, is to do it now and to nurture those relationships on your way to transacting.
I think it's a really tough problem, especially for global brands that have got to try and work out different jurisdictions. So I think the only way to do it is by keeping aware of the local jurisdictions in each region. But then the way to try and react to that, for me, is to work iteratively and have a view of where you're going, and continually on a 2-week basis and a quarterly basis look at what you're doing, and retain the flexibility to adapt and change your plans if that impacts your software issues or your promotional issues or your marketing mix, whatever it impacts. You need the flexibility to adapt, and that flexibility is something a lot of companies struggle with, I think.
Any other questions at all? Yeah, we've got one just at the front there.
Hiya. I wanted to know if you could just share one top tip or one key kind of strategy each on how we could all, like a takeaway for us all, on how we can boost or build ROI and ROR. That'd be great.
I'll start. The hardest thing to do as a marketer is to figure out what to do next. And the beauty of social media is that your customers every day are telling you exactly what they want you to do next. So the simple takeaway is, listen.
I've got an off-the-wall top tip. I've said a little bit already that I immediately sort of put out of my mind and forget things like Facebook and Twitter and think about people and connecting people to content. But a good thing to do is to help you put away those things out the back of your mind so you can think clearly, is to go and look at social applications in other areas, so internal applications or externally facing supplier applications. There's great case studies out there for organisations like Teva, a global pharmaceutical business, that have implemented social applications and tools in their supply chain and connected people across the supply chain. And they've managed to halve the duration of their manufacturing timescale. Absolutely clear business cases. So try and learn some lessons from areas outside of marketing in social initiatives, and see what you can learn from them as a complete abstract way.
My top tip is quite a simple one. It's find your brand tone in social media and let that be different from your tone in other media, and I think there's a sea change that's taking place at the moment. We see it with case studies like the O2 one, where a guy complained to O2 about really bad Wi-Fi in kind of broken London patois, and they responded to him in the same language and dialect and had this hilarious conversation. Waterstones, Oxford Street. Waterstones is a very dry brand, but their Oxford Street store has just started building this really witty, fun relationship with its customers. And that's something that some marketers and brands are still a little apprehensive about doing, because it feels wrong. It feels like you're abusing your brand, but you kind of have to take that risk and, like I say, find your tone in social media and let it be different to your traditional tone in other media.
Yeah, I definitely second that. Definitely humanise your brand. People on Twitter or people on Facebook, they don't want a corporate, they don't want corporate jargon. They don't just want to get links back to the blog. They want to interact and engage. So again, if you can humanise your brand, make it a bit quirky, a bit funny, post some funny pictures, it's a lot more effective than just saying we're brilliant for this or that reason.
And I would say make the effort to track your interactions, track what's going on, and I mean effort, beyond just looking at a pretty dashboard. Start counting the numbers up, working out why something has happened, start A/B testing, multivariate testing, work out what works, what doesn't work, what your community wants. Because although listening has enormous, incredible value, you can also push your audience in a different direction. If you want to look at someone like Red Bull, they're not just waiting, they've got the gist of what their audience is saying, and then they're giving them an almighty shove, usually from a plane in outer space, So you want to be able to be in a position where you're beginning to enjoy and participate with your customer base, and you can't do that if you don't really know what's happening within it.
Okay, I think we've got to wrap up now. So I think it's safe to say that return on investment and return on relationship are one and the same thing. Relationships take time to build. I'd just like to say thank you to our panellists. If we can give them a round of applause. And thanks very much.